Every border on Earth was drawn in blood. Wars were fought over them. Families were split by them. Millions of people died trying to cross them. Now imagine, what if we erased them all? Tomorrow. This isn't a political manifesto. It's a thought experiment. And the answers it leads to will surprise you, because this story has no clean ending. Picture this. No visa applications, no border checkpoints, no such thing as an illegal immigrant, because everyone, everywhere, is a citizen of the same country. You can study in Tokyo, work in Berlin, retire in Cape Town, all without a single piece of paperwork. One global government, one military, one currency, 8 billion people, one city. Sounds utopian? Let's slow down. Let's start with what a world without borders would actually fix, and the list is not small. First, the end of wars between nations. There would be no war between America and China, no conflict between India and Pakistan, because those nations, as separate sovereign powers, would simply not exist. This isn't idealism, it's logic. The deadliest conflicts in history were fought over territory, sovereignty, and national pride. Remove those lines from the map, and you remove the oldest reason humans have ever had to kill each other at scale. Second, the largest economic boom in human history. Today, trillions of dollars are lost every year to tariffs, currency exchange fees, and trade barriers. A single global market with one currency would unleash an economic expansion that dwarfs anything we've ever seen. Think about what happens to talent. The best engineer for any job, the best doctor for any patient, the best teacher for any child, no longer limited by which country they happen to be born in. Third, knowledge, finally, without borders. A medical breakthrough in Japan reaches a clinic in Brazil in minutes, not years. With one shared language, the friction that slows the spread of knowledge disappears. Translation delays, cultural misreadings, academic gatekeeping, gone. The pace of scientific progress could accelerate beyond anything we can currently model. And fourth, and this one is personal, no more famines we choose not to solve. Right now, food rots in one country while children starve in another. The reason isn't scarcity, it's politics. When there are no borders, there are no political reasons to let a region suffer while others have a surplus. Every utopia has a price, and this one's price might be everything that makes you, you. Here's the first problem, and it's the one that should keep you up at night. Who controls the only army? Today, if your government becomes corrupt or authoritarian, you can flee. You have options. Another country, another system, another chance. But in a one-world state, there is nowhere to run. One government controlling the only military force on Earth would be the single most dangerous concentration of power in the history of civilization. Every dictatorship in history has depended on controlling its borders to keep people in. Now imagine a dictatorship with no borders at all, and no rival left to challenge it. The second problem: whose laws do we live under? What's a crime in one culture is a tradition in another. Alcohol, same-sex marriage, religious practice, free speech. These aren't trivial differences. They are the core of how billions of people understand right and wrong. A global legal system would either have to impose one set of values on every human being alive, or it would collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. There is no middle option that satisfies everyone. Third, the Great Migration. Within years of opening all borders, hundreds of millions of people would move. and they would all move toward the same places: Western Europe, North America, Australia. The infrastructure of wealthy regions would buckle. Housing costs would become incomprehensible. Public services would collapse. The very prosperity that made those regions attractive would be eroded by the pace of the influx. This isn't a moral argument, it's a math argument. The same thing would happen if everyone in New York City tried to move into one neighborhood on the same weekend. Fourth, and this one cuts deeper than any economic argument: the death of identity. You don't just lose your passport, you lose your story. Human beings don't just identify as people. They are Egyptian. They are Navajo. They are Basque. These identities carry thousands of years of history, language, memory, and meaning. A one-world state doesn't guarantee the preservation of these cultures. History suggests the opposite. Dominant cultures absorb smaller ones. Languages die. Traditions fade. And once they're gone forever. And fifth, perhaps the most overlooked force on the planet: religion. For billions of people, their religious identity is more fundamental than their national one. It shapes their law, their family structure, their understanding of death and purpose. A secular global government wouldn't be seen as progress by much of humanity. It would be seen as an existential threat. No world government in history has successfully governed a multi-religious population without either suppressing religion or granting it so much power that it becomes the government. We don't have to speculate entirely. We've run a version of this experiment already. The European Union is the closest thing humanity has ever built to a multinational single state. Open borders, a shared currency, a common parliament. 50 years in the making. And in 2016, one of its founding members voted to leave. Brexit wasn't about economics alone. Polls consistently showed it was about identity, about the feeling that our laws should be made by us. That is a feeling no economic argument, however compelling, could override. If 27 countries with shared histories, similar values, and comparable standards of living struggle to stay unified, what does that tell us about the prospect of unifying 8 billion people across every civilization on Earth? Let's be specific about who gains and who loses in this world. The biggest winners are the countries currently locked out of the global economy by geography, corruption, and colonial-era disadvantages. Sub-Saharan Africa, with the youngest population on Earth, would become the world's largest labor market. Nigeria alone has more people under 25 than the entire United States. That human potential, currently bottlenecked by borders and visa restrictions, would be unleashed overnight. India's skilled professional class, engineers, doctors, programmers who currently navigate brutal immigration systems, would be free to work wherever their skills are needed most. And the biggest losers? Ironically, the countries that built their prosperity on being selective. Switzerland, Norway, Singapore. Their wealth is partly a function of control. Controlled immigration, controlled markets, carefully managed environments. In a borderless world, that control evaporates. And with it, potentially, the very conditions that made them exceptional. Here's what's strange. We may not have one government, but we already share one internet. The English language has become the default operating system of global commerce, science, and culture. Not by force, but by utility. AI-powered real-time translation is making even that barrier porous. Global supply chains have made countries economically inseparable. A war between major trading partners now destroys both sides. That mutual dependence is, quietly, the strongest argument for cooperation we've ever had. Someone in Cairo and someone in Seoul are watching the same shows tonight, sharing the same memes, using the same apps. The cultural convergence is already happening, not because anyone planned it, but because human beings, given the chance to connect, do. A single world state may be centuries away, or it may never come at all. The forces of nationalism, religion, identity, and power are not going quietly. But the forces pulling us together, technology, trade, shared threats like climate change and pandemics, are just as real, and they are accelerating. The question isn't whether the world will become one. The question is whether we can learn to live with each other before we're forced to. Because the border was never the fence. The border was always the fear.